My name is Shawan Goldring, and I am the chair of the International Awareness and Involvement Committee for North Arundel County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Today, we have a very engaging panel, and we're here to discuss the ties that bind, the intersectionality of African and African American people, spotlighting the NSARS movement and the Black in Nigeria and the Black Lives Matters movement here in the US. We are also joined by the wonderful members of our illustrious sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, as well as our chapter members of the medium but mighty North Arundel County Alumni Chapter, members of the Anne Arundel County community, as well as a host of our brothers and sisters across the world. And I say welcome. In the last few years, we've witnessed and sometimes experienced extreme and tragic loss of our African American brothers and sisters at the hands of law enforcement. From, as far as I can recall, as far back as from Sean Bell, all the way to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and all those in between and since then. Some of those losses were televised, tweeted, Facebooked, and so much more. But less publicized is the heroism and the unfortunate tragedy and losses of our family in blue. I'll mention just recently this week the loss of a Capitol police officer down at the tragedy at the Capitol. I say family because in my eyes, we're all children of God, and the loss of a good cop is a great loss to our community. So a lot to discuss and a lot of work to do. So let's get at it. So let me turn it over to one of the two phenomenal leads of today's event, Melina Cole and Dr. Takia Williams-Newbold. Melina will review today's agenda, our objectives, and the standards for this engagement. Thank you and welcome again. Melina.
Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for joining in. Today, we will be discussing the significance and the impact of the NSARS, which is the Special Anti-Robbery Squad based in Nigeria movement, and we'll be talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. We'll also be discussing how can we explore the commonalities and how to harness their strengths to create positive change. We will also like to encourage a respectful, open and honest dialogue to end police brutality locally and internationally. As we engage in our conversation, we want to make sure we have open, honest, and passionate dialogue. We also want to make sure you understand all opinions are welcome. We want to do this by being respectful, agreeing, and disagreeing respectively. Also, a couple of chat Zoom features that we will have as a part of our discussion today. If you notice, if you have a question or comment when we get to that point, please go to the participation tab in your Zoom and raise your hand, and Dr. Takia Newbold will actually acknowledge you to come to the forefront, take your phone, take your computer off of mute, and share your particular point of view. Also, if you want to post a question, you can click in the chat to actually post different questions that you want to prompt the panelists and our moderators to have going forward. So thank you. We want to be open. We want to be honest. And I'm thankful for you guys to ensure that we're following this place. This is a safe place. So we want to make sure that as we have a safe place, we're being respectful because we have a lot to discuss going forward. All right, next we want to meet our panelists. So our first panelist is our moderator, Moniqua Roberts-Gray.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon. My name is Moniqua Roberts-Gray, and I am the Social Action Chair for the North Arundel County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And in my day job, I'm a public affairs specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm excited to lead, moderate, and facilitate this conversation, and I welcome honest, open, and engaging conversation. So thank you.
Our next panelist is our very own artist that you'll see later on in the presentation, Mr. Watson Meir.
Hello, my name is Watson Meir. Originally, like the dialogue, like the information says here, originally from Florida, but I'm currently living and working in Brooklyn, New York City. Most of my work basically gives the reflections of what's going on right now within, not only in terms of African Americans, but the African diaspora as a whole. Just try to give a voice, a visual voice to some of the things that we are experiencing in these very historic times.
Next, we have our Black Lives Matter activist, Armani Jackson.
Hello, my name is Armani Jackson. I am a junior at Bowie State University. I am studying political science with hopes of becoming a policy analyst or political commentator, and one day becoming the youngest Black female senator. That's a big goal of mine. Also, I am the newest secretary for NAACP Youth and College Division of Anne Arundel County, as well as a community organizer in my local community for, we call Navigators of Worth and Wellness. I'm a co-founder of that. And I just do so many different things in the community. And I'm just glad that I'm able to be a part of this conversation, as I have been very active in, especially in the Black Lives Matter movement for quite some time. And I'm just excited to jump into the conversation with you all.
Next, we have our NSARS activist, Nemez Obanobi.
Hello, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? My name is Nemez. I was born in Nigeria, but raised both in Nigeria and the United States. I came here when I was 16, attended high school here. I am a digital consultant and event strategist for the government by day. And in my spare time, I lend my voice to the movement that I feel more passionate about, which is back home. So got involved in the movement 2015 after the general election. And since then, it's been an ongoing fight for the voices back home and not allowing them just feel like they're all alone. And any way that we can support them, lend our voice to the struggle, that's why I'm here. And I'm also the host of a popular African podcast based here with my cousins called Cousins in America. So I'm excited to join the convo. Thanks.
Thank you. And then we have Special Agent DC Watson.
Good afternoon. My name is Damian Cunningham Watson. I'm a special agent, Illinois State Police Division of Internal Investigations. I've been with the department for 14 years, and I am hoping to provide some insight to help us combat police brutality as it pertains to just use of force and anything that we can do to try to bridge this gap. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next we have Officer Posey.
I'm Officer Posey, Maryland native, born and raised here. I'm here basically to do the same thing as Brother DC Watson, answer any questions about use of force or what policies or rights may be violated, or you feel that they may be violated, and kind of help clear up any misunderstandings or myths that may be out there, and kind of give you concrete Supreme Court decisions and things like that to help further educate our people so that we don't end up, putting ourselves in bad situations, I would say, on the side of the road and, just when encountering law enforcement.
All right, so before we get deep into our discussion, we want to first get grounded. Let's understand what are the different movements and what law enforcements are doing, and how can we better educate ourselves to understand the impacts. So first we'll have NSARS.
Hello, good afternoon. So I just want to share my understanding of what NSARS is, because I know a lot of people on this call probably don't know what it is. NSARS is a movement that started as a result of SARS, which is a special anti-robbery squad. It's a police unit that was set up in 1992 by the Nigerian government because as a result of people just resulting into crime as a result of like the economic situation of the people back home. So if you're familiar with Nigeria, Nigeria is one of the popular countries in Africa. It's the biggest Black city in the world, Lagos. And a lot of people, they go to school, they spend time educating themselves, and they graduate from school, they're not able to find a job. So they result into crime because the economy, the system is corrupt, and people aren't able to do what they're supposed to do after spending so much time studying. So the results of crime. So they created this unit to combat that. But as a result of that, it hasn't really worked out the way it was envisioned. A lot of people have lost their lives in the last 30 years. We have anywhere from about like 1,000 to more. It's an unconfirmed number. We don't know exactly how much, but every day there are different reports of like people disappearing, being killed by the police. And I've had my own personal experience, and I guess during the conversation we'll get to like touch on that. But it's a movement that's close to the heart because as a Nigerian, when you go home to visit, you get to feel this pain that people are feeling back home. It's not just exempt to you because you're in America or you speak like you're from America or you talk differently or you look different or you're rich or you're poor. It's something that's affected everyone back home. For instance, I went back home a couple of years ago. I was stopped by the police for having my headphones in my car, for looking good, for dressing well. That's the reason. They could stop and harass you for having a good phone. It's just miseducation, misinformation. It's abuse of power on the end of the officers, miseducation, not properly evaluating the officers that are part of this movement, and they take matters into their own hands. They could kill you on the side of the road. They could make you disappear. Nigeria is a great country. I know when you hear these stories, it's kind of like when you're in Nigeria and you hear the stories about like what happens in America, what happened this week. You're kind of like wondering like what kind of country is this? But Nigeria is a great place, but we just have some bad fruits in the police force and that are part of this unit. Not saying that the unit is all bad, but they haven't fulfilled their role to protect people, to address crime. And that's why we're having this issue and we're having this discussion. So NSAS, the movement started in October. Someone got killed, a police officer's wife, and Nigeria just turned 60. And the people were just frustrated and they got into the streets. And that was the beginning of the movement NSARS.
Thank you, Nemez, for sharing that. We'll have Armani to share Black Lives Matter.
So with Black Lives Matter, it is a decentralized political and social movement advocating for nonviolent civil disobedience and protests against incidents of police brutality and all racially motivated violence against Black people. It was founded in 2013 by 3 Black female activists, Opal Tometi, Patrice Coolers, and Alicia Garza. So some quick facts. One thing I did understand with Black Lives Matter is Black Lives Matter globally, and it's not just only in America. Black Lives Matter in the UK, in Africa, all across the globe. Some quick facts is Washington Post has reported that in the last 5 years, there's been an estimated 5,000 deaths of African Americans at the hands of the police, which is an average of 1,000 people killed every single year. Black Americans are killed at a very disproportionate rate, with a leading total of 1,420, and Hispanic Americans, who have a total of 998. So for every movement, and I also believe that with Black Lives Matter, the movement right now is just as big as, or is big as, the civil rights movement back in the 1960s. They have the Campaign Zero, which started in 2015, which is the agenda that we're trying to that they created so that they can show what we want to accomplish and how to eradicate police brutality. And it's also to target the root causes for police brutality through 10 necessary steps. The first one is in broken windows policing, which is like the criminalization of Black and brown people. And that's just ending it all together. Two is community oversight, which is something we really need because in order to have a healthy relationship with the police officers, we need community oversight, and in order to end police brutality. Also, three is limit the use of force. Four is independently investigate and prosecute. Five is community representation, which is very well needed. Six is body cams film the police. Seven is proper training. Eight is in-for-profit policing. Nine is demilitarization, which is also a really big issue with having, a lot of weaponry. And then 10 is fair police contracts.
Thank you, Armani. Next, we'll have our officers, Special Agent DC, and then Officer Posey.
Good afternoon again. As it pertains to law enforcement, there's several ways you come in contact with law enforcement. Traffic stops, of course. You can be walking down the street, and then there's calls of service. So calls of service would be anything such as what we've seen in the news. I think there's one instance in New York where a lady was walking her dog and she felt threatened, so she called the police. That's a call of service. I mean, we must show up, we must deal with that situation. You can be walking down the street and you can come in contact. If you're typically in a high crime area, there's a thing called Terry frisk or stop and frisk, where officer, if he has reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime, about to commit a crime, or was part of a crime, he may stop and frisk you. So those are terminologies that we were talking about today, stop and frisk. As it pertains to state police, which is who I work for, there's things like Pennsylvania versus Mims, which gives a police officer the authority to get you out of the driver out of the car. Supreme Court has given us authority to say, if we ask you to get out of the car to further our investigation, Pennsylvania versus Mims. And as far as passengers, Maryland versus Wilson, that gives us the authority to get you out of your car. So a lot of times, when we come in contact with police officers, he says, get out of the car. I don't have to get out of the car. Well, today we will discuss some of these things that will help educate you, what you can go look up yourself and see that the Supreme Court has already given us authority for these type of things to further our investigation. So I'm excited about it, man. I'm very, very excited.
And I'll just piggyback on that as well. Just kind of putting that difference between what is probable cause and what is the difference between reasonable articulable suspicion. It's totally different. And honestly, to conduct a traffic stop, you really only need reasonable articulable suspicion, which is, I felt that based on this area, this time of day, this is what I felt through my training, knowledge, and experience to make this traffic stop. So a lot of times you'll see people say, why'd you pull me over? That's not, a legal reason to stop me, or whatever the case may be. But unless you know that these Supreme Court cases have already been decided years, 40, 50 years ago, and they're still in the books, then you wouldn't exactly know how to, protect yourself and what is in an officer's legal right and what your legal right is as a citizen, as well as just making sure that aside from that, we focused on the general elections and voting on the federal level, but nobody knows who their state's attorney is for their county. Most people don't know who the judges they elect every year. They just kind of go to the ballot and just look for a name they either saw or look for the political affiliation. And it's really take a look at who you're putting on the bench that directly affects you in Anne Arundel County, as well as the state of Maryland, because those are the people that if something does go, sideways or is wrong, I mean, if you're like in Queen Anne's County, Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, if you're putting these wrong judges in order, they're not hearing your cases. They're not even thinking about, they're going to more than likely side on the side of law enforcement. So just making sure that we also pay attention to those local and state elections.
Hi, everyone. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. This next section that we're about to embark on is entitled The Brute. The Brute is a thought-provoking piece of artwork by Watson Lear that has generated a lot of buzz inside and around our community, and to be completely transparent, inside and outside of my sorority. So with that being said, I would like to offer to all of the panelists 60 seconds to share their reactions, thoughts, or inspiration that was derived once they saw this piece of art. And then we'll also reach out to the audience. Thank you. And we can start with, just to make it interesting, Amani, would you like to share your thoughts first?
Sure. So my initial thoughts when I saw this picture is that it reveals that the system of policing in both America and Nigeria share a common issue of police brutality. It shows that both countries deal with systematic oppression and corruption amongst our leadership and amongst our police officers. Not all, of course, but mostly some. And we know that when we give individuals power to police us, we find ourselves dealing with the aftermath of that abuse of power given to them. And I just look at like the flag and how like it's in both the flag of America and Nigeria and how it shows the binding between our brothers and sisters in Nigeria and America that come together under the same fight for being treated and respected as human beings. So, yeah.
Thank you, Amani. DC, how did this artwork provoke your thought process?
When I first saw it, I was like, oh boy, man, that's gonna be a tough crowd that we have to entertain here. When you look at it, you see the muscle part of the arm is the white muscle. So, you know, you can, I first said, okay, that's the system. The mouthpiece is depicted as a Caucasian individual. The one eye of the face is African American, so it represents like the 10% of the country that's law enforcement. The hand on the gun, my first thought was, man, you don't see a lot of minority officers killing the majority, but you know, this still is a problem. The blood on the baton. So I was like, man, we about to go into a hostile situation based upon the people who've seen this, because they, you know, a lot of people feel this way, and it associates all of us as we are bad individuals, and that's not the case. But you know, it says a lot. It definitely says a lot. But I also know that it's very, very articulate. It's a very good piece. And I need to hire this brother do me some work.
Hold that thought. Denise, what are your thoughts? What inspired or made you raise your eyebrow when you first saw this piece of work?
When I saw the piece, I was speechless. As someone that's lived both here in America and in Nigeria, I just automatically, I just thought like Black people are experiencing the same pain both home and overseas. So it's just crazy. It's a painful thing. It doesn't matter whether the color of the skin. I can see that half is half. I didn't go into that much detail as much as DC did, but I just could see like half his skin was like Black and half the other half was white. And the person being affected was just a Black person. So irrespective of wherever you are, you're still experiencing the same thing from the law enforcement, which is very painful. And makes you think like, what is the root cause of this? Is this what the system was created for policing? Is it to oppress Black people, both home and abroad? And I couldn't help but think about that and investigate and look at like more information online and listen to more podcasts, and it kind of like leaned towards that direction. So that was what I took away from the piece. It was very powerful.
Thank you. Officer Posey.
When I first saw it, I thought about the shock factor. You know, we were going over the art and everything like that, and that was the first picture, and it kind of stood out to me. So I actually, you know, asked a couple of my friends what they thought, and we all kind of had the same revelation that this is people's reality. So it doesn't really, you know, matter Black or white. When you have that uniform on, you still feel that same uneasy feeling whenever you're encountering law enforcement. That this could be the ultimate result, that your life may be drastically affected, you know, in one way or the other. So, you know, I think it's a great piece, and I, you know, hope to see more things like this in the public eye, because it, you know, things like this need to be seen so people are aware that this is a lot of people's reality every single day. It doesn't matter what your station is in life, rich, poor, you know, whether you live in affluent areas or, you know, what they would call the not so affluent areas or whatever they have you. This is people's, you know, realization every day. So I like the piece though. It's definitely a attention grabber.
Absolutely. And Mira, I just want to share really quickly my 2 cents, and then we're gonna go to the chat. If we have some folks that are engaged and want to share their perspective as well. Your artwork was extremely thought-provoking, and I went on both sides of the fence. If it can cause you to have this much conversation, the impact is already there. And when I saw the individual, I think about African Americans and the different layers that we have at work, at school, at home. So I saw the cop, and I jokingly call him albino because I just saw the different skin colors and skin textures in terms of how do I have to perform at work? There's a code of blue at work. How do I perform as an African American? So I just saw different layers in the burden of that choice through that artwork. And then I did have a moment of compassionate empathy for the officers who served on the panel, because I didn't know if it would stimulate the conversation, because it is a thought-provoking piece. So those are some of the things that came to mind immediately for me. How many layers we have to wear as African Americans in this country. But it's an engaging conversation, so let's go to the chat and see what the community had to say really quickly. I want to identify maybe 1 or 2 individuals who would like to offer up. Melina, do you want them to come off mute, or do you want us to read solely from the chat what was shared?
They can come off of mute. We'll call their name out and they can also raise their hand in the participation tab or comment in the chat if they want to be acknowledged to come forth and share their opinion.
Okay, well, the first one that I saw, and if I missed someone, please forgive me. I see the first raised hand is Valerie Lubin, and then I would like to go to Leslie Shell. Valerie, can you unmute for a sec?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. I just wanted to briefly say that the correlation between the police officers, whether they be in the U.S., how they're portrayed, and how they're also, the young man talked about his experience in Nigeria. I would like to just highlight the fact that from my point of view, it is really police brutality and police power. Power, regardless of who it's being placed on, there's a common sense of power in that uniform, and what it represents, and the authority that comes with it, that inspires that sometimes brutal behavior and that indecency and lack of respect for over.
Thank you, Valerie. Leslie, would you like to offer your perspective?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, of course, when I first saw it, the first thing that caught my eye were the races of the officer and the hands. The hands are holding weapons, and both of those hands are Caucasian officers, which is normally what we see with things that are going on now.
Anything else, Leslie? Those
No,
two
actually,
things spoke to you? Okay.
that was the first thing and what really stuck out for me.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Miss Lisa Williams, I think you're calling in. Can you share your thoughts?
Hi. Hopefully you can hear me. When I looked at the picture and I saw the anger of the police officers and the aggressiveness of their stance, I just felt hated when I looked at it. And I imagine my grandchildren and my children in the face of an officer who looks like that, who doesn't care about them and just hates them. So it makes me afraid.
Thank you for that. Miss Tiara Winter.
Yes, when I observed the picture, it just showed me with the color of the officer being biracial, that brutality can come from any race at the end of the day. It's not just Caucasians toward Black individuals in Africa as well as in America. And then I also looked at the hand that was suffering and the bloodshed on the hand. And it could be anyone's hand. It could be my son's hand, my husband's hand, a neighbor, anyone's hand, and just really look at it. There's no justice, there's no story behind it.
Thank you, Tiara. Miss Robin, I noticed earlier in the chat you spoke out. Are you still comfortable sharing your views?
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to I just wanted to mention that, you know, slavery is a part of this as well. I think that policing started as a result of slavery. I think the slave catchers actually turned into police officers, and you know, as we evolved, they started out as slave catchers. So that's something that we have to consider too. We've always sort of been a part of the system. Police officers have started by um, targeting Black folks as far back as what I guess was since slavery, what's that, 1800s. So it's a system that's been in place for some time. I wanted to offer a different perspective too, because I'm a public servant. And although I work in housing, it's a difficult situation when you're dealing with Black communities and how they see you as a public servant. You're there to serve the Black community. You're there to serve your community in whole. But it's difficult as a Black servant because you have to do your job and do what you're told, and at the same time you have to serve your people. So it's a difficult situation. So I kind of see that in the picture where I'm sure the officers are torn, the Black officers in particular, as they're trying to serve everyone, but then they have to make sure that their people are not being harassed or targeted. And it's a difficult position to be in.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much for that insight. And before we turn it over to Mir to share what was his inspiration behind it, I'm going to close out with Sabrina Clark, who added in the chat. Sabrina, do you want me to read it or are you going to hop on?
Well, I'll hop on, but I won't add any further words to this. This is my thought, and only that. Now, I think that this piece reflects our own responsibility to be who we say we are, to do what we say we're going to do, and we can't be on both sides. We have to take an action one way or another. And I think that this piece for me reflects just what that action needs to be, the commitment we need to make within ourselves to do what needs to be done at this time.
Thank you, Sabrina. Mir, so many different perspectives, so many different insights. Very thought-provoking, outstanding job, but it's always great to hear from the artist. Can you tell us what inspired you? What was the rationale and the motivation behind this art piece?
Yes, definitely. Thank you to everyone for sharing your perspectives. I guess I can only just start from the beginning of when the first the vision of the piece kind of came through my head. I mean, for years before this, I've been really just creating artwork, more so to speak towards the Black experience, what we're going through within my lifetime, anyways, people within my generation. But unfortunately, like you said, Sean Bell, for me, the big I guess catalyst, if you want to call it that, would be the Trayvon Martin situation. That really, I guess, more so steered where a lot of my artwork the views that my artwork kind of has, just because of the pure trauma that experience and countless other incidents such as this kind of had on me. I don't like to only create art that kind of feeds into that trauma, because I don't want to just create this mindset of like, hey, all these people are enemies. I have friends who are policemen. I've had policemen that have helped me several times in my past. So I don't really want to make the assumption that all these officers are this way. But if we keep just seeing the same thing over and over again on the news, I have to speak towards our experiences. But back to the piece. So yeah, a lot of my work was more so garnering towards, hey, this is racism. Racism is the cause of this. Racism is the cause of this. This is what's going on in America. But when the NSAR situation happened, and I got details of how bad it really has been in Nigeria, it kind of made me pause and think whoa, this. Yes, racism is a intricate component to all of this, but it is not the only pillar, if you want to call it that. It is not the only pillar that is what. It is not the only pillar to what me seems to be some sort of a spirit that, because I try not to watch any more of those videos because they're way too traumatic. But when you look at these videos of whether they're coming from America or they're coming from Nigeria or different parts of the world, there seems to be some spirit that comes over these police officers. And the name of the piece came over me, and it was called The Spirit of Brute. There seems to be a spirit that comes over these gentlemen and women as well. So and the fact that it happened in Nigeria was like, well, you can't say it's racism because everyone in Nigeria is Black. So it caused me to like, all right, let me go into further research to kind of see like what was the inception, as one of the panelists spoke earlier, that in SARS, not in SARS, but SARS started in 1992 because of like a lot of lawlessness that was going on in Nigeria, which is, understandable, but because of economic reasons and these economic reasons and the fact that these officers, SARS officers, weren't getting paid at a certain level, they moved on to start doing crimes themselves. So it wasn't, you can't say racism. So you can point towards things such as capitalism, such as economic issues. So there's a lot of different pillars in this. So it showed me that it's not just racism around the world, and it can be different pillars that can cause a lot of this, the brutality that we are seeing within these videos.
Can I ask you a creative question here in terms of this art piece? I know you entitled it The Spirit of Root. Did that name come first, or did the imagery from the videos you viewed in terms of you starting to sketch what this piece will ultimately end up?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it more so was the title first, and it came straight off of just looking at different videos, hearing individuals from Nigeria speak about their experiences. I mean, and it sounded like you would think this stuff is in America and it's a white cop that killed a black person, but no, it was these are Black officers killing other Black officers. So like, it was like, wow, there's something else here. There's not saying that like racism is not. There's different pillars to whatever this illness is that's going on.
Okay, and the decision to use the flag, was that always present, or did that come later in your creative stage?
That actually came more so like while I was creating, like what should be the background, like what stands behind this, and the vision that I got was something that, hey, what should be behind this is where are these things occurring at, just so it can like drive into the viewers that, hey, this is what's going on not only in America, but this is what's going on in Nigeria as well. One thing I'm really trying to more so do with my art is not only, I mean, because we're living in America, we're living in, I mean, the flagship of like culture almost. Anything that happens in America, it kind of trickles out into the rest of the world. But this is not just something that's going on in America. This is something that's happening in Nigeria. And I was just wanting to drive the point that, hey, this stuff is not only happening here. Like there are other brothers and sisters around the world that are going through the same thing, and we need to join. Because when we're going through something, what I did notice for the George Floyd situation, the whole world was on our side. So we can't turn our back on our brothers and sisters around in different nations when they're going through something similar as well.
And although you didn't use a lot of blood imagery, it still had a very jarring effect on people. It was really like, wow. It's very subtle with the baton. It's very subtle with the gun there and the little splattering of blood on the flag, but it was equally impactful from what we talked about offline, a few of us. So I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it still had a great impact on us when we took a look at it, at the imagery as well. Hold on, I want to go to the chat for a second. Miss Angel shared that racism is more of a state of mind, not necessarily the color of the skin. Christina, is the impact of colonization everywhere? And of course, you're getting kudos from Miss Adrian. Congratulations to this FAMU for creating this thought-provoking piece that truly depicts the complexity of race and law enforcement and good and evil in America and Nigeria. And I hope with us sharing it, this is your artwork, so I can understand a certain level of sensitivity, but it really caused a lot of conversation, and just being able to talk to you to figure out what was behind each piece and how you came to build upon this imagery is very interesting. So is there anything else you would want our audience to know about this piece or our misinterpretations of this piece before we move on to the next section?
Oh, definitely. I would just like to say the person in the audience, I forget her name, and Officer DC, they're definitely really good at analyzing artwork. they're correct. The placement of the hands and with the arm, and that was intentional, to kind of I guess subconsciously speak to the viewer. And yeah, I'm definitely fine with anyone's positive or negative interpretations, because at the end of the day, it's all about starting a discussion. And that's one thing that I feel like doesn't happen enough. Usually people stay in their own silos and their own echo chambers of like, oh, you agree with me, you agree with my point of view. Well, listen, let's bounce our point of views off of each other, rather than like kind of see what this next silo, like, hey, what are your views? What are your concerns? Because at the end of the day, when we do have these discussions, we tend to find out that, hey, we have a lot more in common than we have differences.
So your 3 call to action pieces as we move forward, before we go to the next section, what 3 call to action pieces do you want folks to walk away with from the art?
3. Well, I would say one, which why I created it, is to understand that, hey, this is something that's going on a global scale, and apparently racism definitely is one of the pillars, but there are several pillars that are the reason behind some of this. I definitely would say capitalism, economic systems. When we talk about Africa, more so, there's a lot more tribalism. From my research that I've kind of done on things, definitely that I would like them to kind of take away that I don't know, this is something that we definitely need to, as a whole, need to find out, like, what are the solutions to this, and also to kind of figure that, hey, this is not just a, I don't know, I don't know about this, the third one. The third one kind of the same
Kind
as,
of overlap?
yeah, it's kind of like this. Hey, this is not just a black and a white thing. This is something that, as a whole, is going on.
Well, the spirit of Brute has done all 3 or more in terms of engaging us, made us think and be more open to different conversations. So thank you, Mir. I think this is an outstanding piece, and we welcome to see more of your artwork in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. We appreciate you. Sorry, can you advance the slide for me? Okay, the next section, the intersectionality of the movement. So, Melina, you still there? Okay. So the next section that we would like to speak with our panelists about, it's almost broken up into, I don't want to say broken up, it's almost like these sections are interchangeable. How are these movements similar? And so I wanted to see, kind of try to mix it up in terms of our panelists, who would like to speak to this point first on economic inequality, social media, abuse of power, lack of accountability, or psychodynamics. And I just wanted to toss that out for consideration. Who would be open to sharing their 60-second perspective on each of the movement and how they interact with each other?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, nice.
So when we look at this image, I think it's so spot on. As far as like economic inequality, I think that plays a role with like what Amir said. Amir said, mentioned the officers are not getting paid enough, and people are not getting compensated when they go to school or they go to college. They finish school, they spend so much time, they get all this education, and they can't find a job. That pushes them into crime because the jobs aren't there. The officers are going out every day, protecting lives, trying to maintain law and order, but the legislators are not passing bills to make sure that they're well compensated. So what do they resort to? They're going to abuse their power. They're going to ask for bribes. They're going to roughen people up, just profile people for the wrong reasons. You could be working on the street, you have a laptop. Like cybercrime, I'm sure you guys have received like some Nigerian email from a Nigerian prince at some point in your life. That is the reason. Yes, that's the reason why stuff like that happens, because a lot of people spend so much time educating themselves, trying to help their families out of situations. Not saying that it's right. I don't commend it. I say it's completely wrong. But if you see the situation of people back home and how they're living, I can understand why they resort to do things like that. For me, I think it's a thing about greed, why they get some people, or some people are just mere casualties in a situation like that. But these are some of the issues that happen: lack of accountability. People do things like this, they don't charge them. The officers go scot-free and they get a slap on the wrist and they go back to like doing the same thing. So some things like that, social media help amplify the NSARS movement. That's a key role the social media has played. If not for social media and Twitter and Facebook not restricting or limiting the voices of people back home, that's why we were able to like get the attention that we needed to have for this movement. But even with that, the Nigerian government is still saying that it didn't happen. The massacre that happened at the toll gate never happened on the 28th of October. So things like this, I mean, I think this image is like so spot on, but I'm not going to take any more time. So, but yeah.
No, no, thank you for that, Denise. Armani, can you walk us through your thought process in terms of economic inequality or psychodynamics in this current time and environment we're in now?
Yeah, sure. So with just looking at the diagram, I want to start off with social media because I'm somebody who like I use a lot of social media when it comes to spreading awareness. And I think when it ties in with the psychodynamic part, for me, and I posted on Twitter like months ago back in the summertime when people were circulating the video of Ahmaud Arbery being shot down. And the emotional like tension and just seeing how he got shot down, it was very like it was traumatic. And I think, you know, with social media and how it's great to, you know, repost and, you know, spread awareness, but at the same time it's really traumatic. So I told people, you know, if you don't feel comfortable watching these videos, of course you can still spread the awareness, but you know, just be mindful of those who may not feel comfortable watching, you know, one of our brothers and sisters being shot down and killed in the streets. And then also with abuse of power and lack of accountability, it goes back to our legislators and how we just need to keep the pressure on and let them know that we need the accountability. We need a civilian task force that's gonna, have accountability and create a healthy relationship between the police officers and the community. And then with economic inequality, it's all around where we're dealing with, especially in low income neighborhoods where a lot of officers are spending time in these low income communities, and they're just just obviously causing more issues where they're not creating a relationship with us, where those people that live in the low income communities are dealing with more brutality and having to deal with other things as well. So I just I appreciate the fact that all four of these things are interconnected. So yeah.
Thank you, Armani. Officer Posey in DC, I have a question for you, and I just want to piggyback off of something Armani said about social media. When these videos are being pushed out, it feels like 24/7. What type of pressures, if any, heads your way? Do you guys see more negativity faced towards the officers when you guys have these videos that's going through the news channel repeatedly? Do you feel some resistance or disdain from the community? Do you almost have like peak seasons where the tensions are heightened for you when these videos are out in community?
Yes, it's definitely a heightened sense of awareness when you start interacting with people. In your interaction, they made mention of Freddie Gray being in the Maryland area. I remember that was like a ongoing thing, and it was to a point where even situations like calls for service where I didn't just show up here. Somebody called me here. I'm here to investigate or solve whatever problem we are having at this moment. And the first thing is, well, I hope I don't end up like Freddie Gray. And I'm like, well, why would that happen to you? Like, I don't work for Baltimore City. We're not in that same, environment. And I would hope that, that wouldn't be your first thought process. But of course, seeing the constant reel of videos across the country would put anybody in that mind state. So it's definitely like a heightened sense of awareness. And also for myself, and I'm sure other officers will agree, just officer safety. Now you're concerned about retaliation and things like that. So now you have to be hyper vigilant of where you're parking at and where you're eating at, and who's around you when you go in stores and things like that. When these things are when tension is so high, in the community, because you don't want to be the target of someone's anger as well. So it's definitely a difference.
Okay. DC, do you have anything you want to add?
I would
Or
definitely.
we're not limited to social media, but I just wanted to throw that question out to you for consideration as well.
I definitely agree with what Brother Posey said. When you see these things come across social media or the news, it creates a negative toward police officers, and that's understandable. So what I try to tell, when I was on patrol, I was one of the senior guys on patrol. So I try to tell the guys underneath me, well, you gotta anticipate and expect this type of resentment towards us based upon what some other officer did in other part of the country. So with that being said, you understand you. And what I learned to be helpful was I would apologize. So I came in contact with someone who was upset about a previous experience. One, they want to be heard. They felt like they were not heard previously, and so I would let them get it off their chest. Tell me what's bothering you, and then I would let them know that I'm not that officer. I would address them, ma'am, sir. I would give them respect that they felt they did not get, and so what happens, or at least in my experience, when we tend to do that, people tend to calm down. I would use things to get them to calm down. Typically when someone gives you a license, if you touch their hand in the process of getting a license, that touch calms them down. So I had to get on my game to use psychological things to de-escalate situations. I knew it was bad when I forgot the incident. So many of them. I was at a stoplight and I looked over and I saw a car next to it was Caucasians, and they all gave me the finger. I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't even know you. Like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I'm not engaging in a stop with you. But they gave me the finger, and that solidified that America's upset. It's not just black. It's not just white, because it had come to a point where every time I stopped somebody, they say, "You stopped me because I'm black. You stopped me because I'm white." And like I told the story before, I would often say, "Well, my wife is white." Whoever I stopped, you stopped me because I'm Asian. Well, my wife is Asian. Now they don't know that,
right?
But it's to de-escalate. I have to de-escalate the situation so I can affect my business to get on about my business. So these social media, the news, it all affects us. But at the end of the day, as an officer, we can only reach one at a time. And so in the process of reaching that one, if we are respectful, it changes the whole narrative that we all aren't the same.
Okay. Thank you, DC. Mia, do you have any insights in terms of the intersectionality of each of the movements as it pertains to SARS and or the Black Lives Movement in your experience?
Yeah, definitely. Just really short in terms of, I guess, with the SARS, I guess one thing that, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, you definitely, in terms of the root of the cause, you can definitely point at things such as, slavery, which is something that we can definitely identify with here. But I guess within SARS, when you think about what might be, I'm not directly there in Nigeria, but from my research, what it seems would be is something more so in terms of colonization, in terms of what might be the I guess the root or the foundation of what we might be seeing, the negative things that we're seeing coming out of Nigeria within SARS.
Thank you. I want to make sure I didn't leave anybody out. Oh, so one of the things my sorority sisters did, we want to again offer perspectives and insight from the audience. So I'm going to remind you, if you have any comments, thoughts, views, or feelings, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat, and we would like to hear from you. So I'm looking over into the chat, and Miss Lisa Watley, would you like to speak up or come off mute for a sec? And if not, I can read it for you. Sound like you're coming in now. Lisa Watley?
Okay, hi, sorry about that.
Okay.
No, I was just listening to what the officer was saying about an experience he had and thinking to myself, that sounds very similar to just white privilege. Being able to flip off an officer and have no fear that anything is going to happen. There's no repercussions from that. That's what it sounded like to me as he was telling that story. Something that, a lot of our sons, brothers, fathers do not have that type of privilege to do. Not saying that anyone would really want to do that, but there's fear there. Not to do that as a Black person. But as someone who's white, you don't feel like that. You don't feel like anything is going to happen to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Consider that's abuse of power as well. Miss Amanda Campbell, can you join us and share your perspective?
Hi, sure. So I work for the Housing Authority in Annapolis. And so poverty is ubiquitous. And so I often see police, but I feel like police are more comfortable with exercising, abusing their power within communities where there's a sense of vulnerability. Right now in low income communities, specifically in Annapolis, there's extreme vulnerability, whether it be around the color of our skin, evictions, housing situations, etc. And I often see police be a little bit more um, fearless when it comes to interacting with our residents and the people around our communities, because it's just like they don't care about the vulnerability and the impact that that vulnerability will have on one's psycho dynamics and their psyche in general.
Okay, thank you, Miss Amanda. Mir, I think you had your hand up or you wanted to respond to either Miss Amanda or Miss Lisa's last comment.
Yeah, it was just more so just something I've always observed. It was because when the officer said like these individuals shot a bird at him, like I've observed countless times where I'm in the car with one of my friends and we're not doing anything illegal. We're just driving from point A to point B. And if a cop gets behind us, how both of us will just like have these very minor panic attacks almost. We have nothing in the car, nothing crazy is going on, but it just shows you like kind of the differences. I don't know if some white people can't understand that, but kind of the differences where you feel like you have the audacity to shoot a bird at someone, but like me, like even if me and my friend are not even doing anything, when we're in the car, like there's like this instant fear, and it kind of like just shows you like what's probably installed in our heads when it comes to things like that. So that was just something I was just thinking about.
Thank you. So I see Officer Posey and then Armani. Jump in, please.
I just want to say really quick, you know, it's not synonymous with just Black civilians. Even my first 5 years, even still to this day, if I'm driving in my personal vehicle and the cops get behind me, I still have this eerie feeling that because the system wasn't made for us to operate in this line of work. I'm sure myself and Brother DC have all seen certain pitfalls that have been set for you, or how you've been unfairly treated within a department, and you see like there's not a rhyme or reason to why people get favoritism, and it's only thing you can attribute it to is the color of their skin. So even now I'm driving in my car and I'll get pulled over and I'll just sit there. I won't tell them what I do, who I am, and I'll just want to see how this stop goes. I'm respectful. And then all of a sudden it's amazing how the tone changes when, you know, oh, after you've kind of been aggressive, oh, I'm off duty, blah, blah, blah. Oh, why didn't you say anything? You know, you're good to go. I'm like, but see, it shouldn't take that for you to act like you have sense. So I just want to put that out there, that it's not, you know, just, you know, the public that feels it. It's also Black officers. When I'm driving to other states, you know, things like that, it makes a difference. And I don't think I will ever lose that same feeling that you all have, you know, when the cops are, you know, behind you or you're interacting with them, because you don't know their mind state. And just the abuse of power and lack of accountability. That's also because, you know, a lot of us don't know how to go and use those proper chains to get these officers out of these areas or get them off the force, because we're so intimidated to even go and file paperwork to make a formal complaint. And that just allows these officers to stay on until something drastic happens, like the officer that killed George Floyd, like 3 other shootings. You know, it's like, how does he still have a job? I don't get it. But when people are not pushing these reports and pushing these complaints up, it just allows people to stay in like a cancer and, you know, spread throughout.
Thank you, Officer Posey. And I believe on the slide that you and DC provided, I think the first quote was that you can't win the fight in the streets.
Yeah, you
Correct
can't.
me.
We don't win fights on the streets. We win them in a courtroom. That was said to me by an FTO of mine almost back in 2014. And that's just basically saying that a lot of times we like to argue with the officer because we feel some injustice there. But I tell people all the time, this is not the place nor the arena to win your argument. That's for a judge to decide. So I'd rather you take the ticket and no matter how egregious it is and get home safely than go, you know, meet this officer where he is or where she is, and then end up, you know, not hearing anymore over a speeding ticket, you know what I mean, or over something really minor that could have been avoided. And I'm not saying you have to be submissive and just accept it, but I'm saying that know where you win it at, and it's never going to be on your side if you're being combative on the side of the road, or, you know, whenever we have a legal encounter.
Okay, let's get home safely first, and then we'll pursue it in the courts.
Right.
Armani, I want to hear what you were going to offer up, and then I have a comment in the chat from Miss Leslie, and then back to DC.
So I just wanted to go back to the part where, like, with economic inequality and the abuse of power and lack of accountability, like, is very interconnected, because when you think about it, how with our local governments and how they fund the police officers, and how, you know, like with police unions, and they're asking for funding and stuff like that, and all the funds are being poured into the police, to police officers, or to the also, like, you know, prisons and the institutions. So we look at how these institutions are geared towards policing and basically criminalizing our Black and brown sisters. And instead of looking at the fact that with economic equality and how we have social determinants of health, and with the issues that we have where there's brothers and sisters who need food and who need clothing and who need, you know, recreational centers and just mental health centers, anything that could pour into the community, they ignore that completely and only just place, you know, policing into the neighborhoods. And you see, like, oh, they're wondering why there's so much crime in neighborhoods, but you're not pouring resources and money and funding into the communities, which is the reason why there's so much issues going on. And then they think it's the solution is to, you know, arrest them, you know, criminalize them, but that's not the case at all. So I just wanted to just point that out with the economic inequality and the abuse of power, which is the reason why I think, you know, our local governments really need to learn how to use the funds better, you know. So yeah.
No, thank you so much for that, Armani. I want to hear from DC before we jump to the chat, and those that are listening in the audience, don't forget, it's just not we're just not talking domestically here in the United States. I want to hear if some of these same experiences in terms of the intersectionality of the movement pertains to the Nigerian side as well. So I'm going to go to DC first, and then I wanted to hear what Miss Leslie and I think Tiffany Graham had to share in our chat.
Yes, I think a part of the problem as far as abuse of power or lack of accountability is our community does not know how to go about filing complaints, like Brother Posey said earlier. And as a result, an officer will go through maybe 10 or 15 years of getting accolades when he shouldn't have been getting them. He should have been getting negative counseling statements and write-ups. But when he abuses minorities or anybody for that state, but when we don't go file, or when we go file and then we talked out of filing a formal complaint, that does not go on his file. So like I say, I'm internal affairs. I think we have to understand in the Black community that the same zeal that you see officers on the street with, that to go out and try to prevent crime and reduce fatalities on traffic and all that stuff, that same zeal we have in internal affairs. You know, when it hits my desk, that zeal, I had that zeal. I had that zeal to go after, I'm not saying I'm going after an officer, but I look, unturn every rock to see if he violated any civil rights, if he abuses power, or any of that stuff. So in the Black community, one thing I would suggest is if you felt that you've been abused civilly or physically, or there's another problem that I see is, slow down. So there's so much to say, is that we tried, like Posey said, we try to fight on the street. When you go to China, if you don't know Chinese, then you're looking for a translator. You can't talk Chinese in one day. You can't talk French in one day. So when you have a complaint and you file a complaint, the language of police, I know. So when you file your complaint, I go over what it is that you're complaining about, and then I'm able to dissect the video or the audio, whatever the case would be, and see if he violated, because I can speak that police jargon to see if he did anything that he or she shouldn't have done. And so what I would suggest, the reason why we have a lack of accountability, because we don't file a complaint. You can't jam an officer up. That's a bad term to use. I shouldn't say jail. You can't get it on his record to even be looked at if you don't file a complaint. So we got to start going to these police departments. You can download a formal complaint online now. So what jurisdiction you go in or live in, you go to that website, look to the left, go down, file, download a complaint form, fill it out, get it notarized, And now you have someone like myself in your jurisdiction looking at that officer. And if he didn't do anything, then we contact you directly and say, based upon policy and procedures, there's nothing here. Now, you might not want to hear it, but you have to know that there are people out there that will use the same rigor and zeal to get to the bottom of it.
And that's official record that will be noted. Okay, I appreciate that. All right, let's see. Let me go over. I want to say it was Leslie who wanted to chime in, and then Tiffany.
Yes, just looking at the chart, working here in Baltimore City, I think that was Officer Posey who said he didn't work in the city. Well, welcome, I do. I actually work for Baltimore City District Courts, and I am the program manager for Baltimore City's specialty court. We operate a drug court, which I manage. And with that court, I see so many of these things, the economic inequality. I have so many clients who come in and know nothing about what is afforded to them. And I have case managers who get them everything they need to navigate through the system, from, education about their health, their, the legal aspect. And then that leads me to the psychodynamics, which I see not only with my clients, but with those who abuse power, because they, all of them, I think, suffer from some form of ACEs. A lot of them have some adverse childhood experiences that they bring over into adulthood, not just the clients, but those who abuse power are coming from those homes of hate and racism, and they're bringing it into their job, unfortunately, to abuse the power that they're given. So that was one of the things I wanted to say, seeing the clients and the interactions they have with officers. I'm lucky enough to have officers that I bring onto my team and I train. I've trained the state's attorney and the public defender to be able to work with my clients. If you cannot work with my clients, you cannot be on my team. You can't abuse your power and be on my team. So a lot of it comes from abuse of power and lack of accountability. There is no one holding them accountable. Well, I'm in Baltimore City and I'm holding people accountable. And I work with a couple of judges who allow me to do just that. And they are wonderful. So, we have those who are not, and it's a lot more probably that are not. But, that lack of accountability, someone has to stand up and hold them accountable.
Thank you, Leslie. And I like your problem solution aspect. You saw a problem, you made a suggestion, you're bringing them in for additional training to, again, better support the community. And maybe that could be something that could be a pilot program. I'm not sure how things work at the academy, how to make that kind of correlation, but thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think that's really great information to know, because you're doing the grassroots efforts now.
Yes.
And so when we see each other in the community, again, it's not such a fear.
Right. And there are a lot of grants that they give to people. I operate with a grant. I've been operating with it for quite some time. And I bring in trainers to train anyone. If someone says, I'd like to go to your training, I can contact them and say, hey, we have this trainer, we have someone who needs training. So it's out there. People just have to want it and have to look for it.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that. So Tiffany Graham, you spoke up a little earlier. Do you want us to read the chat comment, or you can come off mute for a sec?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I totally agree with what Leslie was saying. I work for Department of Justice. I'm a victim service program specialist, and this is a constant conversation that comes up. We have a communities of color working group that we're currently working on in my agency. And a lot of times the recurring theme is that the officers that work in the community don't live in the community. So they don't know the people. So whereas I guess you could say John that lives on such and such street may have mental health issues and may cause him to act out, that community person that lives in the community is aware of that and knows what steps to take instead of responding in a different manner. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable coming forward. You know, I understand reporting to internal affairs, but that's not really communicated to communities of color. And for them, they feel like if they complain, depending on the size of their community, it may not go anywhere. It may go to that law enforcement officer whose son-in-law is the officer that they're complaining about. So there is that trust that's not there. I mean, hopefully we can get to the point where people feel comfortable doing ride-alongs. But right now, it needs to be an initiative to me where there's more representation in the community. And I know that a lot of, even in Anne Arundel County, I constantly see the signs up for hiring for police officers. I think if people saw more representation in their community of, I know this person. Also too, I think that a lot of trauma that does occur to law enforcement officers, they tend to want to get back on the job because that's their job, and it's not addressed properly. So then the trauma, they are re-traumatizing either themselves or sometimes members of the community, and it just creates a cycle. So I think that needs to be addressed as well.
Thank you, Tiffany. I saw Melina hand as well.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. As I think about some of the similarities here, we've been really deep in diving on the US, but similar in Nigeria. And Nemez, I'll share some of your story, but if you could share some more of your story around some of the things that you had to do when you think about, we mentioned that the officers in Nigeria are only paid $150 a month. And so when you think about the economic inequality and your experience where when you would go back to your neighboring, your home, I guess, state, and how does that impact the officers and how they approach you and your experience? And then where is the accountability there that you've seen? Is there accountability? And what is the government doing to combat that?
So that's a really good question. So when I go back to Nigeria, let's say for Christmas during the holiday, there's a situation where, like I gave an instance where I'll be driving with a couple friends. We probably have our laptops and have our phones in the car, probably like kept in a particular place. But because of the level of cyber crime that happens there, they just profile you. You could have dreads, you could have chains, you could look a certain way, but because of the economic situation in Nigeria, they don't expect you to drive a Mercedes Benz. They don't expect you to wear chains. So it's a cultural thing. So they profile you instantly. So I think there has to be some education in that aspect to the officers. I think you're not properly educated that the world is changing. And like someone said earlier, I think people look at America as an example. So when you watch American media, you watch YouTube videos, hip hop, whatever, you go to, in the movies, you look at what's happening here and you emulate it back home. So that's why people are doing things. So the officers are not earning anything. Officers are earning anywhere from like 30,000 Naira a month to about probably 70,000 Naira a month. Let me put that in perspective. $1 is 500 Naira. So 30,000 Naira is possibly about $80 a month. So imagine, how are you going to risk your life and you're sent out there to earn $80 a month? That's not even enough to pay for your kids' tuition, because in America, at certain levels to high school, tuition is free. You don't have to pay for high school, you don't have to pay for elementary school, but in Nigeria, you have to pay unless you're in public school, but there's still a fee associated with that. So the officers come back and they ask for bribes. In that particular instance, they're going to ask you for like 2,000 Naira. You understand why they're asking you for 2,000 Naira, probably like about $10 or whatever, because they haven't eaten. They need to pay for tuition for their kids. They need to survive. But at the same time, there's certain days that you're not going to be in the mood to have that conversation. You're not going to be in the mood to like promote corruption. You're just not going to be in the mood in certain days, and you don't want to adhere to that. So you get frustrated and you exchange words, and sometimes that can lead to something. I like a couple of people made some good points about accountability and like going to submit
Formal complaint.
Formal complaints, yes, to the right party. So here, there's maybe you watch it, maybe as Black people, we watch a lot of movies, right? You get
Yes.
maybe something's gonna happen and the officers will come back. If you're living in a particular area, let's say you're living in the hood, you might have some fears because maybe some of the officers are corrupt. You don't want them to come back to your neighborhood and there'll be repercussions for submitting that complaint. Maybe they know someone or someone at a high level knows someone. And it's the same thing in Nigeria. You feel like the police officers are corrupt and they're just suffering. So they need this money and you understand that. Like I spoke with Melina like earlier and I told him like my experience when I go to Nigeria now, it's sad, but that's what I do because my mother is in the States. I don't want anyone calling her to tell her that her son got killed in Lagos. So when I'm going to Nigeria, I have a budget for security. If I'm going to certain parts, or I have a budget to bribe the police commander in my neighborhood. So I don't have to deal with anything. So I have his phone number and I call him when there's any situation or whatever. That's an easier situation for me. So when anyone stops me on the road, I just call the police commander, he calls them and they let me go. There's never a situation where I'm holding drugs or doing anything like, but sometimes I just don't want to deal with the stress of that. Now, everyone is not in the same situation like me that has that resource to pay someone because what I'm paying the officer is what someone's earning in a month. So not everyone has that luxury. So we have to understand that there's certain fears behind like putting those complaints and the accountability is not there. You're not sure where the complaint is going to end up. I mean, these officers during the NSARS movement, people have cried, they've asked for charges to be brought to these officers. Right now, we're in 2021, January 10th. I can't tell you how many officers have been charged, how many officers we have a panel of like community members that have been set up to probe the situation, but no outcome, no press is being given to it. So we don't really know where it's going to end up. So it's the same cycle that we're going to keep on seeing unless something changes. So it's a frustrating, it's a painful situation, but we understand like where the root cause is. It's like Mayor said, it's colonialism and slavery here. And these officers have been put in place to maintain law and order, right? But at the same time, they haven't been given the resources to live a quality life. And at the same time, they're also looking as Black people as the enemy, both here and abroad. And let me backstep a few days ago. The same thing happened. That image, the mirror is depicting, there's one constant there. The Black officer and the white officer are attacking a Black person. It's been all over the press, what happened at the Capitol. Food for thought. The Black Lives Matter movement happened over the summer. We saw the reaction, we saw the representation we saw what happened. But look at what happened on Wednesday. These guys stormed into the Capitol. Crazy, insane. People in Nigeria are calling me, people here are calling me. Everyone was afraid calling me because I live in Maryland, I live in DC. They're like, don't go out, be careful. We don't know what's going on in DC. But the reaction was completely different. So we know that there's one constant. Let's say, yes, they treat Black and white victims the same way in some instances, but we know that the reaction in this particular situation was completely different. And if it was Black people that stormed the Capitol, would have probably had more than 100 people dead on Wednesday. There's no doubt about that. We can't argue that. So there's certain things that we need to discuss. I mean, I know the complaints is one thing. We need to educate people on why they should feel comfortable about making those complaints and make them feel safe and assured that something's going to happen. But look at the George Floyd situation too. I mean, some of the officers got let off. They weren't we're not really hearing anything about the situation. Breonna Taylor, the same thing. The DA's office, it doesn't give anyone confidence that things are going to happen when certain incidents happen, and it's very frustrating both home and abroad. But yeah.
Denise, are you still in touch with a lot of your friends back at home in terms of some of the policy makers, or how is it that impossible or unattainable in terms of changing some of those policies, or seeing it through to fruition? I know there's folks that are activists as well, but do you almost put a target on their back for speaking out? If you can't pay
I
for
think
this level of protection,
if you
because
can't pay,
you're fortunate, you can, but for those who can't.
yeah. So if you can't pay for this level of protection, I'm sorry, but it's the wild, wild west. It doesn't happen in every part. In Lagos, like Lagos and Abuja in Nigeria, they're safe. Those are like big cities. Those are like New York cities. But people are not from those big cities. Just like a lot of people are not from DC. People come from every part of the country and they move to DC to work. A lot of people are not from New York City. Some people are, but a lot of people like migrate there. In instances like that, you're not expecting, people don't really care like what anyone is doing or whatever, but when you go to your country home there, I mean, people are suffering there in those parts. So if you can't afford protection, I don't know. You can't even drive a car because people are gonna like look at you. Let's say you're driving into a neighborhood that everyone is suffering. They're gonna look at you and just be like, okay, he has money. Let's make a note of that. We're gonna pay him a visit like probably tomorrow night or 5 nights from now before he goes back to the city. It's a sad situation. So what are people doing as far as like the movement? We lost a lot of lives. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with the End SARS movement and how it ended. The protests that were happening, the protests were happening as a result of an officer's wife being killed or his girlfriend. They were having an argument, they killed him. That was like a couple days during the same period as Nigeria's 60th independence. People were not happy that Nigeria is 60. There's this level of corruption. The economic situation is just where it is. We don't have constant power supply. So that was our breaking point. So the citizens hit the streets and started to protest. After 3 weeks of protests, they sent the army in to the Lekki toll gate and they opened fire on these people and they killed them. Now, the Nigerian government, the president didn't address the issue. He came out and said that the whole thing didn't really happen. He didn't acknowledge the victims, the people that lost their lives, because that's Nigeria, that's Africa. It's sad, but that's my country. I know how my country works. It's unfortunate, but he didn't acknowledge anything, and nothing has been really said. So I'm painting a picture for the kind of place we're living in and the kind of people that are ruling the government. So until there is an awakening from the people to just stand up and just say enough is enough. That was what this was the beginning of, but we're afraid that the deaths of those people might just silence a lot of the citizens. They might not want to go out, but they need to come back in full force at the 2023 election. That's our hope, because the way things are, we're not too confident that much is going to change, because the people in power just are not accountable. If they have money, they have power, they're not gonna like answer anyone. Someone will come to your house and just tell you like, I'm sorry or whatever. And they'll pay the judges, they'll pay it because people are suffering. And that's the order of business there. There's no accountability. At least in America, there's some accountability, but even with a system that has some accountability, look at what's happening. People went into the Capitol and officers are still getting off and not getting like persecuted or convicted and going to jail for the crimes that have happened. So, yeah.
So there's still a lot of work to be done. Even with voting, it's just so much that's still
and it's
desired.
It's a 60-year, the country is 60 years and America is only 200 years, but we still have a long way to go. But I'm optimistic that something can happen. I'm not going to say that I lose faith completely in Nigeria. There are people that want to make a difference, but we can't continue criticizing the government and criticizing the people in power and saying that they're bad. Good people need to stand up and go and run for office. And that's the only way we can see the change. And knowing who we're elected into offices and positions in government, and not just going in there and saying like, oh, these people are like Democrats, understanding like who they are, who we're electing. Maybe we want to get a particular candidate off, but also do some research. spend 30 minutes, spend an hour, and educate yourself about what this person's policies are. And some of the cases that not everyone can do that, but just try and do some due diligence. And I think that's the only way we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise, for painting a very, we have work to do. Thank you for sharing your perspective, and this is helpful for us in ways that we can see how we could best support efforts in your home country as well. I wanted to make sure before we wrap up this section, I want to check with my leads, both Melina and Takia. Did we miss anyone comment in the chat or any raised hands that want to speak to what Denise just shared, or any of our panelists as we wrap up this section on intersectionality of the movie? Does anyone have any other strong closing arguments or questions that need to be addressed?
Monique, I think you effectually addressed all of the comments that were. There's one comment that we didn't touch on, and I'll just read that.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound good.
We have one comment from Shawan that says, I think social media has given the world a lens to see what's been occurring for years. Rodney King comes to mind as one of the first experiences and visibly, visibly to police brutality. But what about our brothers like Officer Posey in DC? How do we grow empathy for their plight, increase respect for their work, for the work they're doing, and support them? So I think that what she's saying here, we didn't address, but I think she brings a really good point about kind of the visualization of police brutality here and what kind of serves as a callus of what we're going through now. And that also really gave a lens to the NSARS movement because of what was going on here in the US. It really gave our brothers and sisters in Nigeria really motivation to do what they did over in Nigeria and in the US.
Thank you, Takia. And you guys double check. We just don't want to leave anyone out of this conversation because I'm learning a lot, and I hope that you are as well. So we just wanted to make sure that we gave each panelist an opportunity to speak to these 4 points before we move on to our next and final segment. Ladies, are we good?
Yes, we have one last question.
Oh, there it is. Go ahead, Melina.
From Tanya Powell in the group. And Ms. Tanya, do you want me to read it, or I can read it actually from the chat? It was directly to the panelists.
Yes, please read it.
Okay, what are panelists' views on the prevalence of the appointment of the people of color to the position of police chief in departments? Will that help, or is it a band-aid on this complex problem of brutality? Examples included the appointment of the new Capitol Police Chief and the Anne Arundel County Police Chief.
Thanks, Melina. I'm just trying to check if I'm not panelists. Do anyone want to tackle the question that Tanya raised?
So to answer that question, as you know, a local activist, I think we can see that, you know, they're trying, you know, especially with her name, I think her name is Miss Amal
Awad.
Yes. So I attended the it was a Facebook interview with her with some local leaders, just asking her what's her plans and everything. And I'm actually very excited to see what she's going to start doing. And I think, you know, eventually I would like for her to, you know, sit down with some of our local leaders and see what she can do, and what the police department can do to start making things better, to make the relationships between the community and our people better. Because I feel like with the representation, hopefully that, you know, she'll have some type of, you know, seniority where there's nobody that can tell her she can't do this, she can't do that, because she can, you know, bridge the gap between the community and the police officers. So I want to see how this works. And I'm not saying it would be a band-aid, but I do hope that, of course, we still need to get legislation passed. I know with Anne Arundel County, they just I think recently with the body cameras, that's something that, you know, that's just been passed, with making sure that body cameras are being used, especially when it comes to police discretion. And that's a big issue. And that's why a lot of us film police officers with our phones, because we don't know if, you know, once they don't have body cameras, or if they do have the body cameras, it's being deleted, or they're not giving the full video of what's happened between a civilian and the police officer. So I'm hoping that, you know, with her and with her being the police chief, that we can possibly get some type of, you know, things done with her being there. So I think the representation does help a little bit.
Thank you, Armani. And I don't know if you guys recall, but on DC and Officer Posey's slide deck, that was one of the things they addressed, that Anne Arundel County does not have body cams. Correct me if I'm wrong. I saw that on the slide. It's like the last bullet that we don't have it. So that's a relevant point as
They were one
well.
of the last departments in the state of Maryland. Pretty much every agency in the state of Maryland had some form of either dash cam or body cam, but the RFOP was pretty adamant about not having any type of cameras, which was kind of amazing that it took till 2021 for it to even become like a discussion that that was a good idea. So I just thought that was interesting.
I see two individuals. Mr. Jeff Newbar, you have a perspective that you want to share? If you could jump off, or Ms. Takia, can you read it if he's on mute?
Yes, he asked me to read it.
Awesome.
The last name is not a coincidence.
I didn't know we were telling everybody, but okay.
Coming from Mr. Newball, while I agree filing complaint is good, a good way to hold bad officers accountable, the onus should be on the citizens to do so. There should be better recruiting across departments for those who swear to protect. I spent 6 months as the IT director for Baltimore Police Department. That role allowed me to participate in CompStat meetings that showed me how effective community policing can be. On a side note, the events at the Capitol displayed the clear definition of privilege and how some groups of people are treated differently. Some Black officers felt abandoned by their superiors. My question to the officers on this call: do you truly feel seen by your white counterparts? How do you balance the struggle within your department, if any, and the dealings with all the misconceptions about officers from the public? And then he lists a BuzzFeed article for those who are interested in reading it.
I feel seen. Like I said, I've been on the job 14 years. Obviously, there are struggles within policing that we as minorities are facing. I think people think we are excluded because we have the badge. We're not. Since I've been a state police officer, I've had the police called on me at my residence, I think 10 to 14 times. So, like I say, the same things that everybody else we're dealing with as it pertains to being seen. I treat people like I want to be treated. I treat other officers like I want to be treated. And so I have developed the respect of my peers. So they would come and ask me questions, DC, or I would show up on scene. And obviously, it may be a minority that we're dealing with. I had the ability to, not say call in a favor or ask for a favor, like, hey man, this kid is a good kid. Obviously you have a short period of time to determine whether or not this person is a good person or not, but based upon being a people reader, a person reader, I was, hey, let's cut this kid a break. This kid's in college, is a junior. If we arrest this kid for whatever reason, then that previous 3 years or 2 years will go down the drain. And so there's things that we as officers can talk to other officers, and but in order for that to happen, you have to be seen. You have to have a respect. You have to have that, between each other. There was one instance where a young man who was going to school at a university here, his mother was in charge of substance abuse in St. Clair County, which is St. Louis. We caught him with a trunk. He was 18 or something, 18, 19. We caught him with a trunk full of alcohol, which is obviously underage drinking. He went to a prestigious private institution. So if he gets arrested, he's done. He's kicked out of school. He's off the lacrosse team. And so what we decided to do was, make a phone call to the parents. And I said that happened because the suggestion was able to go forward because my peers like, okay, that's a good call. We called the mother. She drove from St. Louis to Chicago that night to get her young son. And sometimes those are the things that you have to do. You have to intervene because you're being seen, you're being heard, your peers respect your decision. And so I do agree. We are being seen. It's an uphill struggle because for everyone who sees us, there's 10 people who don't see us. They don't think that we've gotten here on our own merits. They don't think that we are able to perform the job as they're doing. But through it all, you just continue to fight, continue to climb uphill, and lift as we climb,
Thank you, DC. I had another kind of follow-up question. So Officer Posey, I'm gonna kind of pivot to you, and DC, you could come back if you have more to add. Ms. Lenine Speed Walker wanted to know, do the officers on the panel support changes in the Law Officers Bill of Rights?
Well, the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, I don't support every single change for it, particularly because the politics that go into law enforcement. And one of those things that the Bill of Rights affords Black officers is that, at least in Maryland, we can't be fired for political reasons. So every year or every couple of years, the governor changes. That means the heads of state change, the superintendent of state police changes. And with his change, he brings in his people. And that means people can get fired, or when sheriffs get elected, they can deputize their deputies. We're one of the few states where it can't be a political thing. You have to have just cause to terminate an officer. So if you take away that Bill of Rights, that kind of takes the blanket of protection off of Black officers that sometimes get more of a spotlight on them or get more of a punishment for things that our white counterparts do and get a slap on the wrist. It's 10 that we get thrown the book at. So there are revisions, just like anything, just like, the Constitution, things that need to be adjusted and fit the times that we're policing in now. But to abolish the entire Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, I don't support that, because I've seen how that actually helps us, like Black men and women, stay in these jobs, because we have rights that would be afforded to any civilian if they were in a court of law. It's kind of the same thing. So it's not protecting me from the public; it's protecting me from my department, in the short of it.
Okay, thank you, Officer Posey. DC, do you want to piggyback, or
No, ma'am.
you do feel strongly one way or the other?
Posey said it wonderful. I agree 100%.
Salute, salute, salute. So in the essence of time, thank you all for a very, very engaging conversation. We do have follow-up questions in the chat that we'll probably push back out at a later time, because we want to be respectful for everyone's time. So keep talking, keep adding comments and feedback. We'll make sure our panelists get it. But let's determine, moving forward, where do we go from here? And so what I wanted to do is toss this question out to all of our esteemed panelists. Where do we go from here? What are our next steps? What are our calls to action? Amani, would you feel comfortable sharing what your views are in light of Black Lives Matter and just the social climate that we're currently in?
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure you've heard the term defund the police. And I don't want people to think that, that's like a negative, like a really negative term where we're trying to abolish the police department and all that. But we do want to see where when we mean by defund the police and demilitarize it, we're talking about refunding back into the community. And what we mean by that, we're looking for, so the funds that would originally go to the police department for unnecessary weaponry, and large salaries and anything like that, where it's just going towards the police department, those funds would be refunded back into the community so we can create recreational centers, mental health centers, anything that's going to childcare centers, anything that will benefit our community, because with our community, we want to be able to make sure that everybody is being treated well, because it's not going to be, the solution can't be just policing the community. It should be to make sure that the civilians needs are met. And also another solution is, like I said back in the other part of my other comment I had was a civilian task force, or just accountability. So like I do agree that we need to be able to have a healthy relationship with our police officers. So at this point, we need to have, civilian task force that will create accountability amongst our police officers, so that we're able to just be able to sit with them and try to and observe what they're doing, because without accountability they can get away with anything. So those are my two things.
Thank you, Amani. You guys know technology is always a challenge, so I'm going to ask my leaders, Takia and or Melina, to come back up, because my PowerPoint notes just just collapsed. They died like my battery earlier. So I may have gotten the order mixed up. So ladies, let's lead our panelists in terms of our next steps, because I don't have it in front of me.
No problem. So
Yes.
next, go ahead, Melina.
So to close this out, so we think about path forward, what we want to do is ask each panelist to put their last comments on what they would, as particular to their movement and their particular expertise, what should we stop, start, and continue? And then we'll close that out for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, the save beneath this not computer date. So you guys need a couple of seconds. We got Officer Posey, we got Amir, DC, Armani, Menez. Start, stop, and continue.
Stop, start, continue, right? So I would just say continue that, you know, the engagement, things like this help, you know, keep pressing forward as far as pushing those laws to get just, you know, it's sad, but just the bare minimum of just being equal, continue that. Start also, like I said, paying attention to those officials that are in your immediate jurisdiction, because that directly affects us. So, you know, I understand we like to vote for the presidents and things like that, but put those state's attorneys, those judges and things like that that are in our food chain, that, you know, we need to start paying attention to local elections, and also knowing not just the YouTube law, the Facebook law, but actually going and pulling this stuff up online. It's the, you know, information age. You can figure out anything with a quick Google search. And I guess for police and citizens, we need to stop this lack of communication, because that's what's the misconception, that a lot of people think that we don't care. We are, you know, we have this attitude that we're better, when it's really just, we're at the point where we're trying to be as safe and as careful as possible. The public is fearful for understandable reasons, and that causes an impasse where we are not talking to each other, and, like, you know, it just gets to a point where we're at a standstill. So those would be my three things to kind of help us, you know, going forward.
Thank you, Officer Posey. Let's see, Amani spoke earlier, so I'm going to just circle back to Amir. I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree with what the other panelists said. We should, you know, stop, start, and continue. I would definitely more so focus on start. One thing that I think would be very powerful is if we were to, because one thing I really like to focus on is just the African diaspora as a whole. As we see with what NSAR showed us, is that this is something that, you know, it happens to us on a large scale. This wasn't spoken about, but our brothers and sisters in Brazil, where a lot of, you know, more slaves actually went to Brazil than they did in the Americas as a whole, in the North America as a whole. So there are a lot of our brothers and sisters who are in Brazil who go through a deep amount of police brutality as well. And one thing I would definitely like to see is, you know, just talks, just a communication and communication to see like how we all can kind of help each other. Because I mean, look how powerful stuff like that can be. You have activists in America, activists in different countries in Africa, activists in Brazil as well, all speaking towards their problems and also how we all can chip in and provide solutions. I think that would be something tremendous. That would be something extremely powerful. So, you know, it kind of gets rid of this major issue that we all seem to be going through at the same time.
Thank you, Mir, and that was a nice segue. Denise, start, stop, continue. Globally.
When we think about like what we want to start, I think we need to educate the officers more. We need to be sure who we're enlisting into the force. I think they're not doing a lot of like QA back home. So I think that's important for the movement to be impactful. I think they need to start doing that. And as far as like stopping the corruption, they need to stop that. The culture of corruption, it's from the head down to the feet. The government, I think that needs to be addressed. There needs to be some dialogue. There needs to be some legislation that holds top level officials accountable, because once they're not held accountable, nothing is going to change. If they feel like they're going to be able to do anything that they want to and get away with it, that wouldn't change. So we need some legislation in that aspect. And we also need to start paying these people more. The officers need to get paid more. We can't say that enough, because if they're not getting paid more, nothing's going to change. And it's just as simple as that. They're going to come out every day and ask for the same thing and continue asking for bribes and continue. The protesters, they need to continue pushing forward, lending their voice, not stay silent, not feel defeated, go out, vote, make an impact any way that they can. And we need to continue prosecuting these officials, making sure that they are held accountable. I know we started doing that. We need to continue doing that. And that just needs to happen. And we need to see positive results at the end of this, not just them getting a slap on the wrist or not in the back and nothing happens. We need to see convictions and repercussions for their actions.
Absolutely. DC, start, stop, continue in 60 seconds. What are your views?
Start filing complaints if you feel you've been violated. That's one thing that we need to do in our communities. Start doing ride-alongs. You can go to your department, state police agency, and you want to see what a day or a month or a week is like being a police officer. So you can do ride-alongs. So your driver's license, they'll set you up. You can see what it's like going out there and things that we face. Stop making it us versus them. It's not. I mean, we all the same. In essence, we all from the same communities. We got to stop putting a negative connotation of those who are minorities who want to be police officers. You go in any barbershop, you hear a young man or a young woman say, "I want to be a police officer," and for the next hour, they want to ridicule. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You Uncle Tom. We gotta stop that in our communities. And then lastly, I'd say to be within my 60 seconds, continue to press the envelope, folks. This is a good start. We're doing what we need to be doing, and we will continue to do that. And with these esteemed panelists, we just got to continue to press the envelope.
Awesome. And I just want to make sure, Sister Armani, I know I kind of switched the question up. If you had any last thoughts before we go to our next section in terms of start, stop, and continue.
So I was going to say we just need to start, tearing down systematic oppression and stop the corruption, stop the misconceptions, which is what I've heard multiple times today, is stop the misconceptions between, the activists. I know we've been condemned back in the summertime, but then we see how like with this past week on Wednesday, you see what the Trump supporters are capable of. And I say we need to start having legislation passed. We need to start refunding our communities, and I think we need to continue having this conversation and to continue just being together and having a unified front with everybody. So yeah.
Thank you, Armani. Thank you for wrapping that up so nicely. And I just wanted to also share with our audience who've been putting information and their thoughts and viewpoint in the chats. We're actually saving these suggestions, and it'll be on our website as well. So continue the conversation in our chat as we move along to the next section. So Maria, let me do the forward slide. Okay, so we're going to start with our closing remarks with our Dr. Sean Ashford, Chapter President of NECAC.
Wow, I am so full with this conversation this afternoon. Thank you so much from all of our esteemed panelists. This conversation, as we see with what's happening as early as Wednesday, is needed and continues. And my sorority sisters know my two favorite words is accountability. Well, three favorite words. I have accountability, impact, and action. And that's what we talked about today, the intersection of what's happening over in Nigeria and what's happening in the States. It's all about holding our officials accountable. And then it's all about the people, we, the little ones, who don't necessarily hold those titles to take action, to use our voices to make an impact in our communities. I so agree with making sure that we're not just looking at the president vote, but we're looking at our local authorities. And in Delta, we talk about that all the time, that we need to focus on our local authorities and vote for the people, not just for the title, but for those who are going to make change and make impact. And don't mind us holding them accountable. So I'm filled. You're absolutely right. We have to continue to push the laws and the envelope and engage our community, engage ourselves, to educate our officers and also educate the people. One of our officers talked about being able to go now, the law changed to be able to go now and ask people to step out when we say, what am I being stopped for? I didn't know that, and is that everywhere? Is that in Maryland? And so absolutely, it is a critical time for all of us, everyone, regardless of your title, to be educated so that we can hold each other accountable. We can take action, and with our action, make an impact. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined us today. Before we close, don't get off yet. We are going to post a poll to get your feedback. I've seen in the chat, I was following all of the questions and comments. And yes, this is something we need to continue this conversation. So be on the lookout, because I'm sure NACAC is going to do something else. Thank you so much for joining us. Back to you, Moniqua.
Thank you, Sarah Sean. So everyone should have the TiesThat Bind in Progress a poll up. Can you guys fill that out really quickly for us? Has this discussion provided new insights into the Black Lives Matter or InSARS movement? Yes or no? The second question, today's event has been reported. Would you recommend it to others? And then, let me scale down just a little bit. On a scale between 1 and 5, how engaging was today's discussion? Number 4, are you interested in attending future international awareness and involvement events and other NACAC events? We only make this happen because we hear from you, so definitely complete our poll. We definitely appreciate it. Let me know if you need some more time. Don't forget to keep your phones on mute, guys. Melina, has everyone completed the poll before? Oh, I look like I have a raised hand in the chat. I just want to make sure everyone can see.
So it looks like only 29 people voted. It says polls closed. You want to relaunch?
Yeah, because we still have 52 on. Let's do it one more time. Everybody go now. Let's knock it out real quick. Make sure we get this information so we can further develop our program. Okay, it's starting to come through.
Monique, well, while the poll is being executed, we do have a raised hand that we can do simultaneously if you want.
Oh, okay, absolutely. Was that Sir Alexandria Chambers who raised their hand? Please come off mute for a second and raise your question, so
Yes, thank you so very much. I just wanted to pose this question to our law enforcement partners who are serving as a panelist. I know Ms. Armani mentioned the idea of defunding the police, and I wanted to get our law enforcement partners' thoughts on that whole idea of defunding the police, especially since the other panelists noted how the bribes in Nigeria is a problem because of the fact that the law enforcement personnel in Nigeria are not getting enough funds to do their job. So that's why they're bribing and conducting themselves the way that they are. So I just wanted to pose that question. I know we're pressed for time, but I just wanted to pose that question to our panelists.
Okay, thank you for raising that, ladies. Is this okay to have this last one before we debut Mira's artwork?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay.
I think when you
that real quick.
I think when you hear defund the police, you automatically cringe because we know we're already at a disadvantage. I mean, you take multiple instances, we're trying to catch up, meaning that the criminals have AK-47s, the criminals has Uzis, all these big machinery. And for years, police officers only had handguns. Here in the state of Illinois, we finally got to a point where every squad car has a high-powered rifle in it, because there's nothing worse than going to a scene in Chicago when you shooting handguns, they shooting military style weapons. And so when we hear defund the police, that's what we hear. Obviously, if you start decreasing salaries, a lot of states don't have. I mean, I'm from South Carolina. I didn't become a South Carolina patrolman because they offered me $29,000 when I graduated college. I'm like, So I knew I can go back north and get more. I doubled my salary by coming back north. And so these are the things that you're gonna, if you decrease salary, you're gonna have bribes, And so I understand what they're saying. And there's some other avenues that you possibly can cut to help the community. We're not saying don't. I'm for defunding the police in a certain aspect, but not totally far as weaponry and better cars and salaries and those things, because I mean, every state's competing. You look at the states in the Bible Belt, they don't get paid anything. Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, the Carolinas. But you look at states like Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Arizona, California. Those are states typically where you're going to have high volume of people applying for police officers' jobs because the pay, we know we can make a living and not risk our lives for peanuts.
I think there's also a misconception that there are these super high salaries in these departments. If they are, point me to where they are so I can go apply and work for them. So, no police officer tell you that they join this, department to become rich. We knew that coming in, but you can make a very good living and you can, have what you desire. But at the same time, like Brother DC said, we're some to these scenes and these people, I work on the Eastern Shore, these, excuse my language, but these white individuals have these rifles, have these shotguns, and I am not going out there with a water gun to a pistol fight. I need something that can touch them just as they can touch me. I will have a tactical vest that can withstand a high power rifle round that they're probably aiming at me out. So these things, I understand how it looks and how it's been misused, but it is very necessary for the crimes that we are running into and the people that you saw the Capitol. I would not go out there with a nice looking uniform on. I want to be suited up like I'm deployed overseas because that's how they're carrying themselves. And we all got families and responsibilities. And my only goal every night is to come home the same way I left this morning or that night. So defunding, yes, I agree. We can, reallocate resources. But these police budgets outside of like your LAPD and NYPD, they're not super big in other departments. And that's the problem. You're not getting training because you don't have the budget for it. So whatever you got in the academy, that was it. You had racial sensitivity training 10 years ago, and we don't have the money to hire somebody to come in and teach an 8-hour block to 600 people. So I think it's a lot of misconception on how much money we actually have and generate in these police budgets.
Thank you both, Officer Posey and DC. So Alexandria, does that answer? Are you fully satisfied? I just wanted
that addressed my question. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for raising the question. I had one other thing that came up in the chat that we're going to kind of circle back to. It's very important to have these type of conversations, and sometimes art can start these type of conversations. So we've been blessed to have the spirit of the group and have Mir here to share that. But someone else raised the question, does Mir have other artwork to have difficult conversations and to start that? And so one of the things we wanted to do was showcase and demonstrate some of the art that Mir has for your attention. So take a look really quickly. And Mir, if you have anything that you want to offer, and we will wrap up. So take a look at this great artwork.
Yeah, definitely. This piece is called "I Am Not Your Enemy." Just something I noticed online where I noticed a lot of African Americans were getting in arguments with people from different countries in the diaspora, and I just kind of saw that as like a divide and conquer mechanism of some sort, something that we've seen constantly in history. And I just wanted to create a piece that kind of spoke to, like, we're not each other's enemy. We're like, and just wanted to make a visual representation of this.
Melina, is this the video? Oh, okay, here it is. Here's the second. I just wanted to triple check. Okay, here's the next piece.
Yep, this piece called "A New Day."
Yeah, it's gonna keep scrolling through. I just had different pieces. I do wanna
This is the popular one that
yeah, sorry. My Brother's Keeper. Some of you guys have seen this. You did this back in 2017. Right after the election, and as you can see Twitter. So definitely want to talk about your website where they can go and see your art.
Yeah, my website is artofmir.com. I have different versions and formats of the pieces that I sell. That's My Brother's Keeper again. Like you said, I created that in 2017, and it's been an interesting 4 years with that piece. For the season finale will seem to be, I guess, Wednesday, but it's been a really interesting journey. But yeah, artofmir.com is where most of my pieces are. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is @artofmir. And Art of Mir on Facebook. So just please check the works out. Have pieces for sale as prints and also canvases as well.
We would definitely love to support your efforts. I love the Cage God, and then our youth academies are kicking off, and I can see multiple conversations that they can have with some of this artwork that you have provided. So we would love to showcase that. And just coming up before we jump off, there's a list of some of the upcoming events with NACAC. You know, folks on the call, screenshot it, join us. We have some economic development training people in terms of building online wealth. We have virtual workshops on elder care. A couple actually taking us all the way through the 20th through the 30th of the month, and then our DMV Day of Service. So there's a spotlight on elder care with our chapter. Ladies, did I miss any of the big ones that's coming up? I just want folks to kind of take a look at that, take a screenshot of it, or reach out to us if they have additional questions.
And they can also find all this information on our website at www.nacdst.org to find all of the recent events. Please go there and stay tuned. We also will have a roundtable series coming up in April 2011. We'll do a similar discussion looking at human trafficking and the intersectionality between the two. Same type theme, understanding what's going on with an organization called I Can Fly that is sponsored by Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. The Grand Chapter supports this initiative, and they talk about some of the things that they're doing in Kenya. And then we will also be exploring what's going on here, and we will have some great panelists and experts. We have some sorors in our organization that actually work with human trafficking victims here in Anne Arundel County. So please stay tuned for our events. And you're also able to sign up in the website to stay and get constant communication about what's going on. So I do want to first of all thank every single panelist for joining this call. Thank you. You are excellent. I appreciate and really making this discussion come to life. I appreciate the audience for being engaged in the discussion, having open and honest dialogue. And I know this is not going to be the end of this discussion, but this is the start of where we need to go to really move forward, move police brutality. It's going to take each and every one of us doing our part, and to really combat what's going on here in the US and what's going on in Nigeria. So thank you everyone for a wonderful evening. If there's any other comments, concerns, please feel free to go to our website if there's any additional comments that you would like to make. So thank you to my partner in crime and putting this together, Dr. Takia Newball. This has been a hard work for us, and we truly like to thank everyone. And thank you to the NACAC, IAI, and Social Action Committee for really creating a space to make this happen. All right. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Be blessed, everyone. Keep the good fight.